Today, we are going to tackle a really big question in the life sciences. Why is it that so many truly game-changing ideas in clinical research just fizzle out? It's this strange paradox where you have these brilliant innovations that slam into a wall of organizational friction. So we're going to break down why that happens and, more importantly, what you can actually do about it.
You've all heard this, right? That famous line from Field of Dreams. It's this powerful idea that a great product, a great innovation, is enough on its own. That its value will just naturally pull people in and guarantee success. And honestly, it's the belief that kicks off countless projects.
Because here's the tough reality, especially in life sciences R&D. Senior executives are finding out the hard way that the exact opposite is often true. You can build the most transformative new system, the most incredible new process, and they often will not come. It's just so much more complicated than that.
And this isn't just a feeling, we've got the data to back it up. A major study from the Tufts Center for the Study of Drug Development found that it takes, on average, 6 to 7 years for a single company to fully roll out a new operational innovation. 6 to 7 years! I mean, in an industry that moves this fast, that is an eternity.
And this really shows the disconnect. That same study, it found that nearly 8 out of every 10 companies felt the whole adoption process took way longer than they ever planned for. So we're not talking about a small delay here. This is a huge systemic problem that's causing a ton of inefficiency and frustration.
So how does this whole cycle even get started? Well, it usually begins at what the Gartner hype cycle calls the peak of inflated expectations. And it's all driven by this huge wave of top-down excitement. And of course, a lot of investment.
And listen, on paper, it looks perfect. You get full endorsement from senior leadership. You form these special, centralized teams to design and deploy everything. You carefully pick a few pilot projects to guarantee some quick wins. And the whole initiative is treated like this critical enterprise asset. All of this creates some serious momentum right out of the gate.
But here's the catch. The very thing that creates all that initial speed and excitement, well, it's also what sets the stage for the whole thing to fall apart later. This top-down, centralized approach actually isolates the innovation from the very people who have to use it day in and day out.
And this gets to the absolute heart of the problem. A central team, kind of removed from the daily chaos, designs for a perfect world, how operations should work. But that vision immediately clashes with the messy, complex reality of how clinical trials actually get done in the real world.
And that friction, well, it inevitably leads us to the next phase, the trough of disillusionment. This is that painful point where all those promised benefits just completely fail to show up for the people who are supposed to get them.
This quote just nails the user experience, doesn't it? For the clinical teams on the front lines, the big picture value is somewhere out there. It's abstract. But the burden, the disruption, the new clumsy process, the extra work, oh, that is felt immediately and painfully. So what do? They react rationally. They use the new tool as little as possible and just go back to the old way of doing things, because they know it works.
And that kicks off a pretty predictable downward spiral. Senior leaders look at the low adoption numbers and they lose patience. The funding gets pulled or moved somewhere else, that central team gets downsized, the innovation that was once mandatory, suddenly it's optional. And those early champions who were so excited, they see the writing on the wall and move on, taking all their knowledge with them. Okay, but here's the fascinating part. This moment, which looks like total failure, is actually the most important turning point in the whole journey. This is where the innovation gets a second chance, not from the top down, but from the bottom up. This is the start of the slope of enlightenment.
The secret here is a shift to decentralization. What that means is you're reallocating ownership. You're taking it away from that central corporate team and giving it to the functional teams on the ground, the people actually doing the work and bearing the risk. Now, they're in control.
And what this does is it creates something way more powerful than any top-down mandate could. It creates grassroots demand. Teams start tweaking the innovation to fit their real workflows. They start to see real, tangible benefits in their own little world, like faster cycle times. And suddenly, they start pulling for the tool instead of having it pushed on them.
So the goal isn't to somehow avoid this whole cycle. The real secret is to understand that this shift from centralized to decentralized is going to happen no matter what. The trick is to plan for it, intentionally, right from the very beginning.
This, right here, is why we see those 6 to 7 year timelines. That shift from a top-down push to a bottom-up pull is absolutely essential for success. But for most organizations, it happens by accident. It happens as a result of failure, not by design. The handover is just chaotic and completely unmanaged.
So getting it right, that really hinges on mastering this transition. It means you have to use the right organizational levers to make the handover smooth and to empower the teams taking over. We're talking about training that's targeted to their specific needs, incentives that actually reward adoption, clear operating practices, metrics that matter to them, and really smart strategic communication.
And that brings us to maybe the most important takeaway of all. The big mistake is seeing decentralization as a failure of the original plan. It's not. It's a necessary and powerful stage where real, sustainable, user-driven adoption can finally take root and grow. So we'll leave you with a final question to think about. Is your organization actively managing change, or are you just letting it happen? Because the difference between an innovation that truly transforms your business and one that's just built and forgotten, it all comes down to that choice. Intentional change management is absolutely everything. Thanks for tuning in to this explainer.